Good morning, everybody. The advantage of being the last one is that you probably remember what you heard when you go back. And that's my intention, because I think we are already too late into the day with regards to compliant fuel. And I will explain to you why. I belong to the technical services group of Wilhelmsen, a new group which was formed last year. And this consists of the new building and technical services, which do the new buildings and the retrofits and all the support for technical ship management. We do the inventory of hazardous materials, and something which might become important in 2020, we do the layups also. This is managing the transition. We released a document in December for internal consumption called Managing the Transition, where we detailed all the various aspects of approaching 2020, whether it is with compliant fuel or with scrubbers or with alternate fuels, or even just putting aside your business. Of course, that's a joke. So we start with managing the transition. And Sulfur Cap 2020, I really don't need to go into this because everybody knows it's out there. On the 1st of Jan, it's going to come in. There are certain, shall we say, remissions allowed, but that is for very, very odd reasons like safety of life and the vessel and equipment, and if you're doing some research in technology and things like that. So that's not our concern. But the important aspect of this is that on the 1st of March, you will not be allowed to carry any non-compliant fuel if you don't have a scrubber already. And there is no transition period. Amongst the member states, they have agreed there is no transition period. The 1st of Jan is the 1st of Jan. There is no delay because it's already too late to apply for an extension. There is a certain time period required by IMO for an extension. It's already too late for that. So we are right in the middle of it. Our option today, the one that I'm going to talk about, is compliant fuel. And what is the compliant fuel? It's a low sulfur heavy oil, and it is expected to be available in the market. However, there are concerns regarding the price, regarding the availability, regarding the stability, regarding the compatibility. So these are all concerns with this heavy fuel oil. The other option is to go for gas oil, marine diesel oil. But there we have concerns about viscosity, because it's not easy to run that oil on a main engine unless you sort of cool the fuel. We recommended to all our stakeholders that from January we should start taking up this discussion with our clients, with our charterers, have the charterers and the owners get together and decide, at least within the first half of the year, what is it exactly that they are planning to do. How do they plan to go about it? How do they plan the switch over? Are they going to be supplying fuel from the middle of the year and experiment? Or are they going to do it at the end of the year where it might be too late? Because there is a need for cleaning of tanks. And we recommended that in March, we should think seriously about when and how we're going to clean the tanks. Or if we need to do any modifications, it must be done now. Otherwise, it's too late. If you need to send your ship to a shipyard, you have to plan today. If you need to do your cleaning by riding crew, you have to plan today. Because it's going to take time. You will need the opportunity. You will need to do the tanks one by one. You can't do them all together because you will still be operational all the while. The ships will still be operational, so you could do tank cleaning one by one. Then the question arises, you clean one tank, are you going to put in the expensive fuel today? Then we come further into the timeline. By July, the bunker changeover procedure must be known to the crew. Why do we say 6 months in advance? Because IMO has got a recommendation for a ship's implementation plan, which they expect every shipboard personnel to be aware of, to fill in, to have it verified by their manager or even by class within the first half of this year, so that you show due diligence. You have at least educated your crew. You have made yourself aware of all the complications that may possibly be there. And this ship's implementation plan is a very brief, short document which can be filled up very simply, but it tells you a lot about what you need to be aware of for your own vessels. So by July, the bunker changeover procedure must be explained. By August, the switchover plan must be finalized. And when we say switchover plan to be finalized, the charterer has to be involved, the owner has to be involved, the ship's crew have to be involved, the manager has to be involved, and everybody must decide how and when we're going to do it. By November 2019, we expect, September to October, if possible, the compliant fuel should be on board. There are options of just removing the sludge from the tanks and loading compliant fuel on top, and then consuming that compliant fuel for the next 2 or 3 months, so that gradually all the high sulfur elements are washed out and consumed. Because what's going to happen is, as you load the fuel on top, this is a distillate fuel, it will have a much better dissolving capability inside the tank. It will help to dissolve all the high sulfur content fuel within this low sulfur, and while you are still within 2019, you will be able to consume it. And we have tried out these experiments on vessels with a single tank, and we do see a marked decline in sulfur content, even without cleaning tanks. We have not cleaned the tank, we have just loaded the low sulfur fuel on top, and we have consumed it for a month, and we see a sharp decline in sulfur percentage at the end of the month. So there is hope that this trend is giving a good indication that you may not actually have to go into a shipyard and do tank cleaning. You could actually just do removal of sludge, removal of sediment, and load on top, and still be compliant. And remember one thing, coming further down the timeline, January 2020, everybody knows the sulfur cap regulation is in force. By February 2020, you have to have tank cleaning records well established on board to be able to show visiting inspectors. So like I said right in the beginning, we are already a little bit late if we haven't started thinking about this. We need to think about it now, we need to take up the discussion now, and we need to make a plan. Otherwise it may be too late. What are our recommendations for a smooth transition? The first thing is changing the bunkers. To change the bunkers, you need to take up this discussion well in advance. Where is the supplier? Where is the availability? And you need to plan for that bunker to be on board at a suitable time, so that you will be able to load that bunker, consume all the residual 0.5% fuel, prepare your tanks. You need time. Time is of essence here, and these things will take time because the ships will continue to be in operation. Nobody is going to park the ship aside just to start the compliance process for 2020. So we need documentation. All tank cleaning efforts have to be documented properly. All bunker delivery notes being received on board, whether it is for 0.5% fuel or the 0.1% for ECA, need to be displayed conspicuously on board. Because remember, this is an environmental regulation, and the monitoring and the policing will be very, very close. It will be very, very carefully done by the PSCs, because everybody is under pressure to make sure that this works out. We need to develop a plan for the prevention of an accidental mixing between the 0.5 and the 0.1. This is to show due diligence that we have not only done the plans for changing the bunkers, we've also made suitable plans to make sure these fuels are kept separate. You need to display the fact that you are being diligent in trying to comply with the new regulation. You have a monitoring and trial phase, so you need a detailed line of operations on board. The ship safety management manual must have adequate guidance and material and processes and procedures in place for complying with this regulation. If there is a posted control inspection, and if they see that there is all such material available to the crew, they are aware of it, there is enough documentation, there is record keeping. That's what pragmatic and practical approach is all about. For operations, I need not say, because the experts from MAN were here. And for operations, we have to consult the makers. The main engine, the auxiliary engine, the boiler. we have to consult them about each step we take with regards to this change of fuel. And for the main engine, in case we're going to change the lube oil, that also needs to be done in consultation with the makers. So everything that we do in trying to comply with this regulation has to be a joint effort between the maker, the manager, the ship's crew, the owner, the charterer, all involved. All stakeholders involved must be equally aware of what the responsibilities are. Structural modification, that's the last thing one would want to do, but sometimes on some ships, because of the way the vessels are structured, for example, they may have too few fuel oil tanks, then you need to do some structural modification. You need to do some modification in the pipelines. There is no choice. And if you need to do it, you need to think about it now. That was a good break, actually. I thought somebody was calling me. They had trouble with this particular presentation. Okay, now low sulfur compliant fuel. We have concerns about cat fines and the precipitation of asphaltene sludge, because this fuel, first of all, is unknown. We don't have much data on this, and there is a possibility that a lot of catalytic fines will be dumped into the normal fuel to be able to produce it. And its reaction when two different fuels are put accidentally into the same tank, or successively you are loading the same tank with this low sulfur fuel, there could be generation of sludge. So there are concerns, and if we want our operations to remain smooth, we have to be very careful about cat fines and accumulation of sludge. And there are ways that we can actually keep ourselves aware and safeguard from the ill effects of using this fuel. You even have makers recommending that you use a very fine filter before the engine, 10 micron. So at least you are able, am I right?
You're right.
You are able to trap the cat fines before they reach the cylinder. Cermet coated piston rings. It's a big thing in the market now. When we first heard about it, we said, oh, we're just trying to make some money. But then we realized, no, it's not just a money-making thing. It's actually going to help. It is really going to help, because the fuel that we're going to use is going to create what is called scuffing inside the cylinder liner. And if you want to avoid it, you need to have this ceramic coated metal rings. It's not too late still. You have a delivery time of 6 months, can still be done. The piston rings can even be changed while the vessel is in service, port after port after port. We are doing it that way. Cylinder after cylinder is being renewed at every port. All the piston rings. Then you need to utilize cat fine detecting kits. For example, Unitor has got some very good cat fine detecting kits, so that at least you know whether the purification process on board while this fuel is in use, whether it is effective or not. Then we also would recommend in situ liner diameter measuring instruments, which are nowadays very, very sophisticated, and they give you an indication of whether your cylinder liners are wearing out with the new fuel. It's a very simple kit. It doesn't cost much, but it requires a little bit of attention, because cylinder diameter measurement is a very good indication of how exactly the engine is behaving with the new fuel. And of course, the fuel additives, which some parts of the world, in some parts of the world, owners have been using for a very, very long time with their bunkers. Whenever they bunker fuel, for example, in Japan, they always use fuel additives. But now with the new fuel, it becomes even more important that we must pay attention to fuel additives in the market which help to stop this sludging effect of the new fuel. A few risk assessments for the new fuel. Of course, engine malfunction, and the simplest solution is call the engine maker, keep them in the loop, keep them aware of what you're facing, and in order to keep them aware, you actually need to send them reports very frequently of the engine performance, so that they can help you when the actual effects start showing up. Fuel compatibility, definitely The crew needs to be aware that the new fuel is going to have compatibility issues, and because of these compatibility issues, there could be problems of filter clogging, there could be problems with actual pumping through the system, there could be problems with the fuel pumps. And they also need to be aware that storage tanks, service tanks, and the fuel transfer pipelines are a good source for contamination and should not be neglected when we do our tank cleaning. We can do our bunker tank cleaning, but if you forget to clean the pipelines, there could be another problem. At least they need to be flushed through. Finally, we come back to where we started the whole session, the crew. The most important aspect of this entire preparation, of this entire move towards the new regulations and compliance is the crew. We could do all our discussions here, we could have all the experts here, we could have a fantastic amount of knowledge, but unless that is transferred on board, unless the crew is made to feel what is it that exactly everybody is heading for, everything's going to fall flat on its face. No matter how much preparation we do, the crew has to be trained to ensure that they understand what is the significance of using this low sulfur fuel. And they have to be told scenarios well in advance that you need to look out for this kind of a behavior, this kind of an indication, this kind of a temperature, this kind of a pressure, or this kind of a wear rate. They have to be detailed these scenarios in advance so that when it even starts to happen, they can tell you about it. If we don't pay attention to crew training and awareness, no matter how much preparation we do, it's going to come to naught. That's all I have to say for today. I'm sorry if I've alarmed you a bit, but actually speaking, we need to be alarmed, because if we have done nothing about it so far, we could be in trouble. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
I have a question regarding tank cleaning process
Yes.
of fuel tanks. Do you consider to use any chemical additives?
I would definitely consider, because I am from Wilhelmsen.
Because you did not mention.
But there are tank cleaning methods that have been adopted without chemical. I'm not saying tank cleaning by scrubbing the tank. If you don't have the labor to actually go inside and remove the sludge, you have no choice but to use chemicals. But if you have the labor to go in, if you have the resources to go in and at least remove the sludge, remove the cat fines, which actually speaking, realistically speaking, is not a huge amount. It's only what is left at the bottom. If you can remove it, you are safe. Otherwise, you have no choice but to put in chemicals which will help to create solubility amongst all those items which are at the bottom of the tank. For example, cat fines or water emulsion with fuel or sludge that needs to come back into the fuel, and something has to dissolve it.
So you have already backup plans that you'll be using your additives, which instead
Yes,
of the labor.
as Wilhelmsen Ship Management, we basically depend on the owner's
Valentin, as he
guidance.
said, you have to prepare your own
Yeah.
plan for this. Don't ask what they are.
No, but we, as the technical services group, of course, we can give you the advice on what you should do, but it all depends on what resources you have.
Yeah. The second question, quickly. If in swapping to the low sulfur fuel in September, October, like you mentioned, after the tank cleaning already done, then do you understand how much is a cost?
Yes, yes.
Why it's not to do in December? Why it's to do in September?
This is our recommendation. If you talk to your client, who is the ship owner,
So
and
now
he
it comes
says,
to my question. What is your typical ship that you are managing?
a typical ship,
Typical
it
ship.
could be a LPG vessel,
Okay,
it
what
could be a
size of
car
engine?
carrier.
What size of engine?
Well, the engine is a big range, but for the VLGCs,
Take a
very,
typical.
very large gas carriers, you could have 25,000
So
horsepower.
what is your 2020 budget, capex budget for 2020?
2020
On
capex.
that type of ship?
On that type of ship, we are doing only the management, right? We're doing only the technical management. We don't do the chartering, we don't do the commercial.
No, I'm not talking OPEX, I'm talking CAPEX. You must have put the amount aside for planning for this 2020?
Very low.
So how much?
Very low. In fact, on one of the vessels, we have done tank cleaning only by ship's crew. No capex.
But all the activities that you have just been talking about is a hell of a lot of money.
It all depends on whether you're using resources from outside or using internal
You
resources.
still have to pay it.
Yeah, but then ship's crew get paid anyway.
They don't have anything else to do.
Can I add on chemicals? There are chemicals which do not dissolve and actually dissolve in cat fines and put them in a fuel system. That is a crime in my opinion.
Yes, I
But
agree.
in any case, after washing with liquid soap, which, well, one of the examples is you add 1 liter per 50 ton of bunkers and it creates actually very clean, very good surface. You still have a lot of sediments down at the bottom.
Yes.
Cat fines,
Yes.
sand, metal,
Correct.
rust, everything.
Correct.
You still have to clean it.
Yes.
But with that chemical, I'm not making an advertisement, but it's not dissolving, it's washing. You still have to remove all that.
Yes, and then
Well, filters.
you are removing a very small portion because a lot of it
400
is
kilograms is not small portion per tank.
compared to the bulk of it, which has already been caught in the filters. Because it has dissolved, it has come out, and it has been caught in the filters, and it has been cleaned from there. So cleaning is something you cannot get away from. It's just how you want to clean it. Whether you want to use resources to go down there and clean it, whether you want to use chemicals and then remove the remainder, it's a choice. But the time, I'm more concerned about the time. The time is now to plan for it.
One more thing.
Yes.
Asphaltates precipitate of high temperature and of pressure or of combination. Some asphaltates may precipitate at 80 degrees. It's just sharing with you. You have to look at the heating coils because 7 bar will create ultimately 140 degrees on the surface of the pipe. And then it will become insulated with precipitated asphalt.
We agree.
So there is a need to think about how to safeguard, and for some of blends, lighter blends, to prevent them. It's just.
It's a big question mark. At the moment, nobody knows how the new fuel will behave. But this is
Well,
something
there
to
are
get
experiments.
people.
You can get information
Yes.
from the industry.
That's true. Those are experiments under ideal conditions. But once you go onto the supply
No,
of
they're on board ships.
okay.
And oil majors do share. They don't name the ship, but they do share their experience.
The whole question is the crew aware of what they are heading for? That is the purpose of this presentation. Are we getting the crew to get aware of what the complications could be and be mindful to detect before it goes out of hand?
Rajiv, one more question.
Yeah, you said loading low sulfur oil on the same tank.
Load on top.
How many changes? How many times?
We have carried out an experiment over a period of 1 month, and we've done 2 changes only. And the trend is showing that it is going down. So instead of spending more money, now we know when to time ourselves for the final change.
What we find is cleaning time is not an issue. Question of when the charter or the operator is going to put that sulfur oil, how much before 2020? That's the key factor, because that's where the push and pull is coming.
That is
For
right.
us, we can clean now and say, can you put it now? No, no.
But you should have the fuel, no, to put in. There is no fuel.
It will come.
Fuel is
Or you have to
available.
put the low sulfur
No,
FG.
it will come.
Right now it is not there, correct?
Fuel is available. It is available. We have carried out 2 experiments, and in both cases we have the
Yeah,
fuel.
yeah.
But maybe limited.
Singapore. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.